Hey there, it's Steve from Serious Keto, and in this video, I'm going to test the blood glucose impact of green banana flour. I've done about half a dozen videos on resistant starch, which its proponents claim is healthy for the gut biome and does not cause a blood glucose spike. Now, while I can't test my gut biome health in any way that I can think of on video, I have tested my blood glucose over several different types of supposedly resistant starch. The results at best were mixed, and certainly not something that convinced me that resistant starch is a thing when it comes to controlling blood glucose. However, in each one of those videos, I had numerous people ask me to try out green bananas or green banana flour, which is also supposed to be a resistant starch. For this video, I'm going to test out green banana flour in as simple a baking recipe as I can come up with, which is the chaffle. I'm first going to do a baseline with almond flour and see how I react to that. Then I'll come back tomorrow and I'll try the banana flour and see if there's any difference between the two. Now let me just get this out of the way right away. I'm not a scientist. You'll notice I'm not wearing a white jacket. I'm wearing a Mandalorian t-shirt. This is one guy doing a test on himself. So, disclaimer, consider this for entertainment purposes only. That said, I will be doing the baseline, and I will be testing both with a continuous glucose monitor and the levels software, as well as a Keto Mojo. So with that out of the way, let's make some chaffles. Since this is not a cooking video, I'm going to make this fast. We've got 1/2 cup loosely packed mozzarella, 1 tablespoon almond flour. I combine these into a powder, 1 large egg, blend this into a batter, and set this aside while I warm up my 2 Dash Minis. I'll divide my batter between 2 Dash Minis and let these cook. 4 minutes later, I'll remove these and let them cool. Now before we start, I'm going to take a reading with my continuous glucose monitor. And we are at a 91. I'm also going to start the timer on the levels software, which will do a continuous look at my blood glucose over the next 2 hours. With the Keto Mojo, I will take a baseline ketone test, a baseline blood glucose test, and then I will also test blood glucose at 30 minutes, 60 minutes, and 2 hours. Ketones, not super high to start off with today. We're at 0.5. And the Keto Mojo, we're at a 90 for blood glucose, so pretty close to the continuous glucose monitor. So with that, I'm going to eat my chaffles. I'm not going to make you watch the whole thing. It's been 2 hours now since I finished the almond flour chaffles. Let's take a couple of readings, first with the continuous glucose monitor. "96. In a moment, we'll see how my glucose performed over the full 2-hour period, but first, let's validate this with the Keto Mojo. For the blood glucose reading, 95. So again, pretty much spot on. Now we'll test ketones, and I'm expecting those probably didn't move much, if at all. Whoa, ketones are up to 1.1. Now this is where it gets fun with the levels software, because this analyzes the full 2-hour response of my glucose. And you can see I scored 9 out of 10. That's a pretty good score. It's a stable response. My blood glucose moved only 14 points. Now it gets even more interesting if you're a data geek when you compare 2 different food items, which is what I'll do tomorrow after having the green banana flour chaffle. So today I'm going to be using the green banana flour in my chaffles. Again, 1 tablespoon. I'm not going to show you me making it. I mean, it's basically the same as you saw earlier, but just with a slightly darker powder. Now, in addition to being slightly darker, it's considerably more carby. A tablespoon of almond flour has 0.6 of a gram of net carbs in it, according to Chronometer. This banana flour, 10 grams of net carbs per tablespoon. So as with yesterday, I will take my baseline readings with both the continuous glucose monitor and the Keto Mojo blood glucose monitor. And Once again today, we're starting off at 92. Take a ketone reading, and our ketones are starting off at 0.7. And our blood glucose, 91. Again, very consistent with the readings on the CGM. I'll use the level software to take a picture of my chaffles and start the 2-hour timer. Now these green banana chaffles are considerably more dense than the almond flour. Yeah, these are pretty hearty. They're not real sweet. I don't really taste a strong banana flavor, but these are dense enough that this, I think, would stand up to a pretty decent sized cheeseburger as a keto bun. Anyhow, I'll be back in 2 hours with my results, both from the blood glucose monitor as well as the continuous glucose monitor. So you can see at the 30-minute mark, the Keto Mojo read a pretty decent spike there, up to 124. At 1 hour, I was at 110, so I was on the way down. Now, let's see how we're doing at the 2-hour mark. First off, ketones. 0.6. And for the blood glucose, 96. Now, if you noticed on the Keto Mojo that there was a 3-minute lag between the ketone reading and the blood glucose reading, that was because the battery on my camera ran out and I had to run and get a new battery. But here's the results from the Freestyle Libre app. You'll see that my blood glucose, 95. So one thing that has definitely pleased me out of this whole experiment has been the consistency between the continuous glucose monitor and the Keto Mojo. But now let's open up the level software. This is where things get fun. So you'll see that the score for this was a 6. If you recall, the almond flour was a 9. You'll see that it caused a 31-point rise in my blood glucose. Typically, a 30-point rise is sort of the threshold for what one might call a spike. So we're just into that spike territory. Certainly, I've had far worse blood glucose reactions on various tests. You'll see that the peak was 124, and we spent 30 minutes above the target, which the level software sets at 110. So now let's do a comparison of the two chaffles. Green is the green banana chaffle, and the white line is the almond flour chaffle. Now, since this is a relative comparison, it really accentuates that spike on the banana chaffle. Interestingly though, very rapid recovery. Now, if we do an absolute comparison, you can see that initial little spiky, bumpy thing that we got out of the green banana chaffle, but still a nice recovery on it. Whereas on the almond flour chaffle, very consistent. Now, for each of these two experiments, I tried to duplicate the environmentals as much as I could. So in each instance, I was in a fasted state. I did not do any exercise or anything for 2 hours. I didn't eat anything else. And in both instances, my blood glucose at a starting position was stable somewhere in the mid-90s. In terms of my takeaways, I think this is really the final nail in the coffin, the final resistant starch experiment that I'm going to do, because I keep seeing the same thing in every one of them. While it may be good for your gut biome, the claims that it is not going to boost your blood glucose seem to be false, at least for me. Now, if you've done your own experiments, I would love to hear your results. Let me know down in the comments below. And if you would also like to monitor your blood glucose, either with a Keto Mojo or with the level software and a continuous glucose monitor, I will link to both of those down below in the description. I came into this just wanting to learn, and I did. And I was happy to be your guinea pig in all of this, but the more I think about it, the more I think I'm probably done. So hopefully you found it helpful. As I said, if you do any tests on yourself, I would love to hear your results. Please, down in the comments, let me know. And thanks for watching.